Yeah. Wow.
Not complaining.
Oh, good.
I'm being still, so we're very, very well.
Oh, okay. Yeah, there you go.
The shoe.
Gesundheit. Good evening and welcome to this Tuesday, June 2nd, 2015 meeting of the Raymore Planning and Zoning Commission. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We'll call roll. Commissioner Anderson.
Present.
Commissioner Crane.
Present.
Commissioner Pfizer.
Present.
Commissioner Meiske.
Present.
Commissioner Sarsfield.
Present.
Mayor Kirchhoff.
Present.
And Commissioner Faulkner is here. We do have a quorum, and at the moment, this is the full commission since we have several vacancies recently. We have no personal appearances scheduled this evening. One item on the consent agenda, acceptance of minutes of the March 17th, 2015 meeting as presented, and I would entertain either a motion to accept consent agenda or accept the minutes as presented.
Mr. Chair, so moved.
Thank you, Commissioner Anderson.
Second.
And second by Commissioner Meiske. All those in favor, raise a hand, please. 7, thank you. 7 in favor, none opposed, and no abstentions. We don't have anything this evening under old business, so that takes us into new business, and our case this evening is case 15006, Prairie View of the Good Ranch rezoning request. And Mr. Carteret, if you would, and let's see, I guess I want applicant first. It's been a while since we've had a formal meeting. I knew I was going to be rusty. So would the applicant like to come forward to the podium and present your case to us?
Okay. Good evening, Commissioners. Dave Otis with Good Otis LLC and representing the Good Ranch, our development. We're here tonight to present Prairie View of the Good Ranch, which has already been approved previously, but we have since joined teams with Salee Homes to redo the subdivision to provide entry-level homes for the community, which we feel is something that would be a good fit for the community. Prairie View of the Good Ranch is bound by Hubach Hill, North Cass Parkway, and Brook Parkway, and is kind of set off on its own in an island that will be bound by buffers and walkways. The density and what we are asking for is a change in the density from 8,400 square feet to 7,200 square feet by reducing the front yard and the side yards and keeping the backyard the same. So it's still the same zoning, but it's just a modification of the size of the lots. That's pretty much all I have to say. We've got the land planner that's here tonight, so if you have questions with with regards to the technical things, he's here for that.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Otis.
Thank you.
And now, Mr. Carteret, if you would, give us the staff report, please.
Yes, sir, thank you. As the applicant, Mr. Otis, indicated, this request is regarding the Prairie View of the Good Ranch subdivision. Was initially approved back in 2006, 2007 timeframe, so there currently is a valid recorded final plat on this subject property. Currently has the R1P zoning on the property. The request tonight falls under the rezoning category. We are maintaining the R1P zoning classification. And again, the request is to modify the development standards that fall under the plan district, the overlay district classification on the property. Mr. Otis described the location of the property. Again, it is on the south side of Hubach Hill Road, just to the east of Haystack Road, and bounded on the east side by the Brook Parkway, which will be a future extension of Brook Parkway all the way from the Brookside subdivision to the north through some yet to be developed land that they own. So Brook Parkway will be eventually a continuous road from Lucy Webb down south to connect to this property. Did include in your packet the aerial photograph, and we've included the what is the preliminary plat proposed layout of the lots onto the aerial photograph, so it gives you some sense of how this proposed subdivision would fit into the area. Currently, if you were to drive out there, there is a access cut on Hubach Hill roadway, which was part of the original plan for the subdivision. That is not proposed to be included if this development moves forward. The access for this subdivision would be off of both Brook Parkway and North Cass Parkway. They are maintaining the street buffer area, not included as part of this request, or not even included as part of the preliminary plat, but there is a stream that runs along the western boundary of this subject property, and again, that's going to be maintained in common area. You may have had the opportunity to drive by the site, but I did include some photographs. There's a few things about the photographs in the site that I thought are worthy of noting. The first photograph that you see on your screen is taken actually from Brook Parkway looking to the west, and with Hubach Hill Road there. And the purpose of this is to show that this particular property actually has an elevation higher than the Hubach Hill roadway. So there's actually a slope up, a gentle slope, but it is a slope up to where the homes would be setting in this development. They do propose, as the conceptual plan showed, some landscaping, but again, it's hard to buffer the homes when they're actually going to be up higher than the roadway, but there is some screening that would be available there. And this elevation is quite a bit higher than the Stone Gate. When you actually stand on the property, you can see the rooftops of all the homes in Stone Gate. So it is one of the higher elevations in this part of the Raymore community. The next photograph simply shows what the view would be across the street from the subdivision. This would be facing to the north, and we're looking at what would be the future land area for a Brookside subdivision as it expands to the south. This particular photograph, I'm back on Brook Parkway, again, the eastern boundary of the subject property. And this is looking to the east, and this particular land area is still part of the Good Ranch. It's part of a project that has preliminary plat approval that was done, again, back in 2008 for Bob Jackson when he proposed the estates and estate villas of the Good Ranch. So that's still a valid preliminary plat. There's a total of 343 lots as part of that subdivision, but as you see it right now, it is a field and currently being cultivated. There's a few other photographs. This is Brook Parkway. Again, you can see that the slope to the elevation is increasing as you head south of Hubach Hill Road. The property, subject property is currently cultivated. It simply shows a couple of photographs here. It is relatively a flat land. It does have a gentle slope to the west towards the stream. Just a few other photographs showing again the property itself. This is the looking to the south side of North Cass, one of the lakes, ponds that are on the property. There would be some drainage that would be going to this particular lake. This photograph here simply showed the western boundary line, tree line where the stream is, and again shows the flatness of the property. It really is set up well for a residential development. Regarding the zoning of the property itself, again, it is currently zoned R1P. Which is the same zoning classification for property that is located to the north and to the east. There's a sliver of agricultural where the stream is located. The stream buffer area will remain zoned agricultural. Then there's another pocket of R1P zoning to the further to the west. Stonegate is zoned R1P, and the Brookside subdivision is zoned R1P. Dutchman Acres subdivision, large lot subdivision, is an unincorporated Cass County and has a rural residential zoning classification in the county. The growth management plan I do want to talk about briefly. This is an illustration from our land use plan. The road layout that you're seeing here on this illustration is the recorded plat. That's why the streets aren't lining up. But it does identify what the recorded plat shows. Of course, if we go through preliminary and final plat approval for the subdivision, the land use plan map would change. The designation of the property is low-density residential. That's significant in that under our growth management plan, historically, low-density residential is anything from generally from 1 to 4 units per acre, and that's per gross acre. This particular project does fall under that, the density that is allowed under the growth management plan. Overall, the property is about 35 acres in size. And again, on the growth management plan, I want to identify 3 of the goals that are contained in the growth management plan. Quality Neighborhoods goal number 2 is to retain housing affordability throughout the city, and we believe that can be achieved through this proposed rezoning request. Quality Neighborhood goal number 3 is for new residential subdivisions to be developed within the existing city limits. So we're trying to limit leapfrog development and try to take land area that's currently in the city that has infrastructure nearby to be able to develop that land first. And so this project also meets that goal. And then physical development goal number 4 is to provide various housing, shopping, and entertainment choices for more residents. And action step number 2 under that goal is for the city to support development applications that provide choices in housing style, size, and cost. So I feel that the request this evening does fit well under those specific goal statements. Regarding the transportation network, Hubach Hill Road is classified as a minor arterial. North Cass Parkway is now classified as a major collector, and Brook Parkway is a minor collector. So no driveway access to any of those streets, but there can be street access. Initially, there was not going to be any street access allowed onto North Cass Parkway, which may be some reason why you see the access onto Hubach Hill Road under the current plan. But staff strongly supports the new proposed plan that eliminates that access onto Hubach Hill Road and puts it onto, in essence, now what are collector roads, Brook Parkway and North Cass Parkway. So it's the proposed plan from an access standpoint, staff feels is much better. In your staff report, we identified the rezoning requirements. First, the standard requirements for a rezoning application, and then the requirements for the planned overlay district. The staff report also talks about the requested action, that specifically what the applicant's requesting to modify. And again, under the current zoning, they have modified the side yard setback from 10 foot to 8.3 feet, and the rear yard was modified from 30 to 25. In the proposal, they're proposing to modify the lot size, the lot width, the front yard setback, the side yard setback, and then maintain the current approval they have for the rear yard setback. So I identified those on your staff report under requested action. Regarding previous actions on the property itself, the property, again, that recurrent zoning was established back in 2005, and I already identified what the adjustments were. The amenities that were required as part of that approval of modification of the setbacks, the amenities were to establish a private pedestrian trail around the perimeter of the subdivision, provide landscape buffers along the thoroughfares, and then they had a small neighborhood park as part of that initial approval. I'll get to the amenities that are proposed under the current request in a minute. Then, as I mentioned earlier, the final plat for the subdivision approved back in 2006 and actually recorded in December of 2006. That plat remains valid, and an important part that I talked about in the staff report is action. If you take action tonight on the request, and if the city council were to modify any of the development standards that apply to the subdivision, they still have the right to build the subdivision the way it's currently platted. Unless you place a condition on your approval that you're only going to adjust these setbacks if the layout of that subdivision is developed as you see in the conceptual plan that was submitted to you. So if you base your decision on this layout of access and what you see here, that needs to be a condition that those modified setbacks would only apply if this development were developed under this plan. I don't want you to get caught in approving development standards and suddenly they build what they currently are platted at. And if you're okay with that, then you don't need any condition. I just want to make that clarification. I do need to note on the requested rezoning, it does fall under the statute and code provisions for a rezoning, so it was advertised for public hearing this evening. And we did send notice out to the adjoining property owners and put the sign out for those that travel by the property. It was advertised in the Journal for this evening. I do want to enter into the record all the notices that were mailed to the adjacent owners, the notice of publication in the Journal, the Unified Development Code, the application submitted, our growth management plan, and the staff report submitted to you this evening. As required by the city code, we did hold our Good Neighbor informational meeting. That was done back in April, on April 14th. We had a total of 14 individuals that did attend that meeting. And the conceptual plan that's on your screen in your packet is what was reviewed by the public at that Good Neighbor meeting. The applicants presented information, details about the project, about the number of units. There is a proposal under the preliminary plat to be increased from 60 to 86 lots. The overall landscaping proposed for the site is going to be increased. They talked about a variety of houses, again, for first and second time home buyers, and a mixture of houses. I do have elevations of some of the houses they built in other subdivisions to show you if you would like to see those. And they also talked about that they'd be eliminating that access to Hubach Hill Road. A lot of questions, comments from individuals in the audience. They asked about what the minimum house size would be, they did talk about, they had some concerns about maybe parking on the street and possibly limiting parking on the street. They asked for the reason for wanting the smaller lots. They talked a little bit about traffic, stormwater control, and the size of trees to be planted. At the time, one of the amenities was going to be street trees, and so there was some discussion of tree sizes. And several individuals did comment that they thought the overall density was high and lot size is too small. The individuals that attended that Good Neighbor, just to put all the comments into perspective, I'd say was a split between neighbors that live in the very large acreage of Dutchman Acres, and there were Stonegate residents, Stonegate subdivision residents as well, so kind of a mix of individuals there. The applicant, we answered the questions. The applicant's made statement regarding, why the request, why the smaller lots, and I think, it's summarizing what I heard was he feels there's a market, market for the homes on the smaller lots. The partnership that Mr. Otis talked about with Salee Homes, Salee builds homes in subdivisions throughout the city, on larger acres, on smaller lots. So they have a mixture of customers, that they can serve, and I believe what they're seeing is a need for more entry-level homes on smaller lots. Not everybody wants to maintain a 10,000 square foot lot or even an 8,400 square foot lot. So I think they're seeing a niche in the market that could be met with the proposal. Mr. Eanes from the engineering division submitted you his comments in a memorandum talking about adequate public facilities. The property is served for potable water by Water District Number 10. They do have a main that crosses along the east side of the property, so potable water does exist. Sanitary sewer is within reach of the subdivision. It's not on the property, but it is close to the property, and was adequately sized to serve the maximum density of this proposal. And of course, the street network is in place. And again, the street network is it's operating at about I think it was about a tenth of its capacity. And but it is again designed and built to handle the maximum density of development in the area. So certainly the public infrastructure is in place for the subdivision. Under staff comments, I provided the use standards. There's no use standards proposed to be changed, so anything currently allowed in the R1 would be allowed on the property. I mentioned that the plan district overlay, under our code, the Planning Commission and City Council can permit deviations from the base zoning district standards. Under the planned overlay district, what is deemed that amenities or conditions will be gained by the extent that a higher quality development is produced. So in exchange for the flexibility that's afforded in establishing the new development standards for home construction, the developer must provide certain amenities. And again, many years ago, we established a table of amenities that the developer would be allowed to select from. So we didn't say they had to do this or they had to do that. We gave them a table of a menu of amenities they could select from. For this particular project, they're proposing 3 amenities as they're required to do. Provision of a play court, so a basketball court, play court area would be in the common area, which is kind of in the middle of the property, accessible from the entire subdivision. They would provide a playground and pedestrian pathway, so they do have a pathway that kind of winds through the middle of the property, connecting both Brook Parkway and the North Cass Parkway. And then in lieu of street trees, in discussion with staff, we recommended that they instead look at providing a second yard tree, maybe a smaller decorative tree closer to the home. The homes are already required to have a yard tree in the front yard. Every new home has to have that. The street trees, the issue with this particular area is there needs to be a wider area between the curb and a sidewalk than what could be provided here for street trees to grow. We've allowed them in the Shadowwood subdivision. We've allowed them in the Madison Valley subdivision. But there's restraints on how big those trees can grow, and there's certainly potential with our ambitious sidewalk projects that we have to cause problems years ahead. So I think we're only going to really encourage street trees when we have either a narrower street or a wider right-of-way to allow a wider tree lawn area for street trees. So in this case, we'll probably be looking at a second tree requirement and to meet that last amenity provision. I do want to note the property being surrounded by the streets. There are no buffers specifically required by code along either Hubach, Brook Parkway, or North Cass Parkway, but as you can see in the conceptual plan done by their landscape architect, they are showing a common area buffer around the perimeter of the site. So they do intend to have some landscaping within that area. They're also, of course, they have nice entry features for both entryways. We'll have landscaping on both sides of the entry drives, and again, that common park area in the middle of the subdivision. I do want to just talk briefly about the development standards that are being requested. And in this exhibit, and I included it in your packet, I did want to show you some comparable subdivisions that currently exist in our city. Because sometimes when you start looking at why are they modifying our R1 standards, why are we looking at reducing lot size and lot width and all these setbacks, it really is dependent upon the subdivision itself. And as you can see, we have a number of subdivisions that we have granted different variations to the setback standards. And in the staff report, I specifically noted one subdivision being the Village of Southern Hills, which I think is it was a very successful subdivision. It was a phase up in the Creekmore subdivision that was done. It actually wasn't initially part of Creekmore's proposal, but they also saw a need for what they considered entry-level homes. And those lots sold out very quickly. It's a little bit smaller in total size. There's 49 lots up there, but you'll see their minimum lot size was 5,000. Minimum lot width was 30. Front yard 25, side yard 7.5. So they modified quite a few of the development standards. Now, none of the lots went down to 5,000 square foot, so I don't want to be misleading. But the lot sizes are, when you look at the plat, is very comparable to the 7,200 square foot and 60-foot lot width. And I think the intent of that particular subdivision and what's occurring is individuals are able to buy into the Creekmore subdivision at a lower cost in that particular phase. And then as you know, a few years pass and they want to go to a larger home or a larger lot, they're able to stay within the subdivision. I think the same thing can be said about this proposal in that it's really an entry-level area for individuals that want to be in that part of the community and perhaps then, you know, eventually buy into the Stonegate or the Brookside subdivision or at least stay in that particular area of our community. So I think there's a lot of good comparables between the two. Shadowwood is another subdivision that has very comparable development standards of 7,200 square foot lots, 60-foot lot width. They have a 7-foot side yard setback. But again, very successful development. And a few others you can see there that I simply identified for your review and consideration. Meadows is a subdivision in the Good Ranch that has, again, similar development standards. So I wanted to point those out for you. And then finally, again, under the staff comments, I mentioned the future land use plan map. Another important element of this particular request is the master development plan that was done for the Good Ranch. And back in 1994, when they submitted this overall master plan, there were certain things included in that plan, which included land use and density of residential development. So the Stonegate subdivision, the Meadows, and Meadowwood have all been developed according to this plan and under the maximum density that was allowed. This particular development, again, this pocket right here that I'm pointing to, planned for low-density residential development, and again allowed up to 4 units an acre. Even with the proposed zoning modifications this evening, they fall under that maximum density. They're at a gross density of 3.2. Staff has submitted the proposed findings of fact for your consideration. And to get to the staff recommendation, staff does, you know, again feel that creating an additional housing option for residents to live in Raymore does help the city comply with the goals of the growth management plan. You know, we have a vast supply of lots that currently meet our R1 development standards. We track the number of lots that we have available very closely. What we are lacking are lots that we, you know, classify as entry-level lots, the smaller lots. We had, as I mentioned, the Shadowwood, and we have the Southern Hills, which have sold out, and the Meadows. We don't have a supply of small lots available currently. You know, the applicant, as they indicated, you know, see a need and an unmet need for this type of lot availability. Staff believes this provides, again, another housing options for residents wanting to live on the south side of the community. Access to the interstate and to Dean Avenue to get to our commercial areas is excellent. I know with the property being surrounded by a creek to the west and the 3 roadways, this particular development really is an isolated island. I can't imagine individuals traveling through this subdivision to get from one part of the city to the other. You get into this subdivision, you're intending to go there, unless you're lost. But you know, there's no through traffic, so the individuals that go here are either residents or guests of residents that live in here. So I like this particular plan because I think it does create the lot availability while somewhat isolating itself from what our standard lots would be, as I mentioned, with the Shadowwood subdivision and even the Brookside to the north. I have not mentioned yet the development standards that are applicable to the estates, which is directly to the east, are actually less than what is being asked for this evening. So currently we have approved development standards for land on the south side of Hubach Road to the east that have smaller lots and smaller setbacks than what is being proposed this evening. So I think that's another important element. We're not introducing something new into the area. It is something that we previously have approved for the area. So based upon all that, we do support the request to modify the standards. I recommend the commission accept the staff proposed findings of fact and forward this case to the City Council with a recommendation of approval. Yeah, that concludes staff comments at this time.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Mr. Carteret. Before I open the public hearing, Commission would request just a couple of things. If you wish to speak at the public hearing, once I open it, please come forward to the podium and give us your name and address for the record. Make sure the mic is turned on, green light, and speak into the microphone so that we can hear you. And also, we'd ask that you limit your comments to typically no more than about 3 minutes per person. I don't see that that's going to be a problem this evening, so without any further comment, let's open the public hearing on case 15006, excuse me, 15006, Prairie View rezoning to modify the development standards of the P overlay district. Would anyone from the public like to speak? No? All right, we'll keep it simple then. And seeing no one, haven't used that gavel in months, I swear. We'll close the public hearing and open the floor for the commission. Comments, questions? Yeah, Commissioner Anderson?
Mr. Chair, Jim, you had mentioned that you had, I guess, designs or examples of housing. Do you have that available?
Yes, I do. They're photographs that were submitted by Salee Homes. These are homes that they have available in other subdivisions, and Randy Salee, Tyler Salee is here this evening to provide any information about these. But there's 7 different photographs that they submitted, so I'll kind of scroll through these. And the photographs are of the home styles that they identified at the Good Neighbor meeting, because they had a mixture of ranch, reverse, 2-story, 1.5-story.
Would the lot support the 3-car garage?
The lot, it may not. There was,
Well,
at the Good Neighbor meeting, it was 2-car garages, I believe.
That
yes.
first photo, I wondered, depends on the lot, I'm sure.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. That just caught my eye.
Yeah, good observation.
Well, and that one too.
So what we're seeing, Jim, is
Nice.
a representation of what potentially could be built.
I believe that's correct. I probably would ask if Mr. Slee, if you wouldn't mind
If you would,
perhaps coming
please.
up and addressing that, because I think that's very valid to the application.
And the reason I'm asking is that I do have a concern. I think you had mentioned during the Good Neighbor meeting that same questions that were brought up as my concerns as well. So having a visual here is what I'm seeing here is a representation of what we're looking at.
And if you don't mind, just give us a very brief introduction.
Yeah, Tyler Salee, representing Salee Homes. And the homes that we have shown here this community was actually designed around these home plans. So the 2-story,
Okay.
the ranch, reverse. I know some of them do show the option for the 3rd-car garage, and some of the lots will accommodate the 3rd-car garage as well. So, but these particular plans, again, the lot widths, depths, sizes were all actually based around these exact houses that we show here.
What do you think?
Just trying to get my perception here, so let's use this for well, let's go back to a previous slide, Jim. Keep going.
What do you want, two cars?
Okay, let's do this one here. So,
Yeah.
right. So this particular house here, so what are we looking at? Oh, this is fine too.
Two-car garage.
This style of home here.
Right, so in terms of the dimension, not necessarily the lot, but in terms of the house itself.
Yeah.
Square footage.
Yeah,
Right.
this subject property here is about 2,200 square feet or so, and this house is actually built down in Holden, in a community that we have down in Holden, Missouri. So about between 1,300 and 1,400 on the main level, and the remainder of that actually down in the basement level.
So
Yeah.
reverse.
Yes,
story
sir.
and a
Yeah,
half.
4-bedroom, 3, possibly 3.5 bath.
Okay.
Okay.
Now, Mr. Zer, keep an eye on me here. I would caution, tonight's case is rezoning. We're still steps away from actually new preliminary plat, and even with that on R1 zoning, we don't review development standards, whatever, so the house that would be built.
Just trying to get a
Yeah,
perspective.
yeah, this is the intent. Mr. Carteret?
Just one comment, if I may, and then have Mr. Zur. One of the amenities they have to provide are a variation of housing styles
Right.
and facades on houses. That is, I didn't talk about it as one of the amenities,
But that's a condition.
it is. One of the
of the-
reasons they
of the
submitted the
R1P.
photographs was to show some variety, so
Okay.
not every house could be the
So
same
there
elevation.
is actually a little more meat in the examples than there might normally be without the R1P designation.
Yeah, you're correct, yeah. It wouldn't
Okay.
be a factor if they weren't asking for that planned overlay,
Right.
but since they are, the elevations is a factor.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate you pointing that out. And the example photos are very nice. Yeah, I hate to run you back and forth while Mr. Sully is up at the microphone. Do any of the other commissioners have questions?
Mr. Chair, I got a couple.
Commissioner Meiske?
Are the streets gonna maintain the standard street width?
Yes, yes.
They are, okay.
Yeah.
And
So-
the reason for the front setback of 5-foot reduction is for what reason? So you can get all the lots on here, or?
Yeah,
I don't know if you're the one I should ask that.
yeah, I'll have Wayne Kirkhoff actually.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, Wayne Kirkhoff, I'm land planner, WLK Urban Design, 11437 Flint, Overland Park, Kansas. I think one reason we chose to use a reduced setback is just basically eliminate a lot of driveway. And in some cases, a 30-foot front setback with then a distance to the street. You've got 40-foot long driveways, and what we're trying not to have is cars parked tandem in driveways. So I think it fits the scale of the street and the houses and the neighborhood, and I think it will look better, so.
I would note just one thing that I like when I see it on the design is it gives you deeper backyards. The houses are separated,
Yeah.
you know, from the fronts, they're separated by the street. In the back, by putting more yard in back, there's separation there. And this layout, and particularly with the lots around the perimeter, it looks like none of the houses are really right on top of each other, which I'm sure was part of your objective.
Yeah, we tried to have some variety, but also organize the neighborhood with the loop streets so people don't get lost. And we also, the two entrances are T intersections, so people actually stop and slow down when they come in, and then drive through the neighborhood. I think it's safer that way.
Okay, if you gentlemen don't mind staying close, I think Commissioner Meiske has
Yeah,
more
I'm not
questions.
done. I'm sorry. Okay, so by reducing it 5 feet, is the sidewalk gonna have a buffer of grass?
Yeah, the sidewalk in the street cross-section is the same. And then you'll have 25 feet then from the right-of-way to the house, which would be a landscape front yard, and
Right.
that's
So the
where
sidewalks are still in the 50-foot right-of-way.
That's correct.
Right,
That's
Okay.
right, thank you.
And if I can, Commissioner Meiske, the 25-foot front setback is very common. So if one of the subdivisions that utilizes it the most is the Creekmore subdivision, utilizes 25-foot front. So
Right.
it gives you an idea of, we have many subdivisions that use the 25-foot. That's
Well-
one of the common adjustments made in the R1.
My only concern there was, the prices of the house as opposed to, obviously there'll be more vehicles there. So now, you know, anymore, we've got 2 and 3 vehicles per household. So somebody's gonna have to park on the street, you know.
well, we hope people will use the 2-car garage,
Right.
and then 2 in the driveway,
Yeah.
and then there's at least 60 foot of street, and you subtract the driveway, and guests can park at least 2 cars in front of a house, I think.
Okay. Okay, I'm done.
Okay, other questions? Yeah, Commissioner
Yes.
Sarsfield?
I missed something there a little bit. How far is the end of the sidewalk to the curb? How wide is the grass area?
I think the street is 28 in a 50-foot right-of-way, and so that leaves 11, and the sidewalks are 4. So there's 1 foot from the right-of-way to the sidewalks, that's 6 feet, right, between the back curb and the sidewalk.
Who's got a
Uh-oh,
calculator?
I'm in trouble.
I did have
I'm
a
in trouble
calculator.
there.
but-
Okay, I didn't know the distance from the street curb, you know what I mean, to where the sidewalk starts, how much grass area is there? Because if there is a problem with cars parking, the way I'm looking at it, if you have 4 cars in the driveway and the sidewalk is 6 feet from the curb, all right? If you're walking down the sidewalk, you might run into the end of the second set of cars that are parking, sticking out because they're not maybe pulled up to the garage all the way. If the sidewalk actually met the curb, that would give that extra 5 feet, and people would not have a less of a tendency to block pedestrians that might be walking around the neighborhood. It looks like I lost everyone.
No, you didn't lose us. No,
Okay.
the concern with that is you want separation between the curb and the sidewalk. You need to, unless your sidewalk is wide or, 8 foot wide or something, the pedestrians need to be pulled away from the street surface. That's why you always see on our residential streets, our code requires that separation between curb, lawn area, and then the sidewalks, or our standards for street design wouldn't allow the sidewalk to be pushed up to the curb. Very rare events. You see it if there's no other way to make it happen. So you see a few of the sidewalk we've installed have gone up to the curb, but we tend to make the sidewalk wider in that instance, and it's certainly not what is preferred. And it's only done if there's no other way where we can fit it into the right of way. So, but all of our new subdivisions have that lawn area, that 5 or 6 foot lawn area between the curb and the sidewalk.
But I want to check something. I believe I heard one of you gentlemen say earlier that the intent was that the driveway would not be deep enough typically for 2 cars end to end, that there'd be room for 1 car and it would be self-limiting. So in theory, that second car isn't going to be able to be there hanging out across the sidewalk. That, I know that'll vary according to the specific lot, but
Yeah, I mean, the thought is that there's room to park 1 car, ample room to park 1 car in front of the garage door in the driveway, and we're not encouraging more.
right. Well, I was going to say, not to try to market the subdivision for you, but as the family grows larger and the kids get older to driving age, you'd probably like them to move to a larger home on a larger lot as well. So I kind of sense in your target market here, you're not actually trying to market to a large family with a large number of cars. Can't control it, but still, there's a tendency. Other questions for the applicants?
Just one other.
Commissioner Sarsfield, you're off your mic, though, if you'd scoot up.
Just one more. The mailboxes, is it gonna be group mailboxes, a central mailbox delivery area, mailboxes in front of the homes?
Yeah, I don't, we may need to work that out with the post office.
Yeah,
Right.
I don't know that we've gotten that far yet in design, but, yeah, we probably have to work that out with the
Yeah.
postmaster.
I don't know that the post office does any individual house boxes anymore. I'm guessing that they probably favor just the large grouped community boxes, but I can't speak for them either.
There'll be that 6 foot between the curb and sidewalk,
Right.
probably where those will go.
Yep. Yeah, thought I had a question, but it's gotten away from me.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. Further discussion, commissioners? Mr. Zur, I think I want to touch on one question with you. So there was a hint in the staff report that I'll just quote. This is on page 14, number 6, which is under staff comments. Makes comment, without a condition of approval, there's no guarantee that the lot and street layout illustrated in the submitted conceptual plan will be followed. And I'm not really so troubled by that. I think, check me out, Mr. Carteret, as well. So what we have is an R1P, which is a planned district with amenities offsetting reductions in lot size, basically. What we're hearing tonight, the proposal is also that, with some changes to the minimum requirements and consequently offsetting with additional houses. I'm not so concerned that this specific street layout be followed as I am about, I think one of the main concepts of an R1P is that we're able to accommodate a reduction in individual lot requirements, looking at the development as a whole and offsetting, amenities here or more open land. I think this is interesting, the buffer around the perimeter, the trails through the middle, definitely, offset some of the reduction in lot sizes, and it's off this specific development, but part of the Good Ranch, the open space to the west, the creek buffer you mentioned earlier. So I think there are some offsets here. I'm just wondering, from a legal point, whether there's a good way to establish a condition on the rezoning contingent upon maintaining those amenities. But the amenities are actually part of the R1P. So are we already covered on that without a condition?
You are covered as far as the P is concerned, because they're proposing those amenities. If you're talking about the long-term maintenance of it, that's going to be up to the homes association that would be created thereafter. So
Right.
if you're talking about long-term maintenance of the amenities that they are suggesting, the playground, the pedestrian paths,
Yeah.
that's HOA. If you're talking about wanting to make sure that you see the play court and the playground and the second yard tree as part of the next go-around, that's
Right.
part of your P designation
Right.
that you are approving this
Right.
evening.
And just a point, but one of the things about the trees, the developer can't guarantee that the trees will survive or will not be cut down somewhere out in the future. But again, I think it's always in the developer's best interest start with the highest quality development he can, because it obviously improves the marketability. So there's some safety there, I think. I do have a quick question. So the islands in the cul-de-sacs, I don't know whether islands is quite the right word, but they're shown, they're discussed a little bit. At this point, we really don't know whether fire district is going to like those, or perhaps raise an objection for being able to turn around a fire truck in there, do we?
And I can start, Mr. Eads can jump in. The fire district has reviewed that aspect of it.
Have they?
The
Okay,
teardrop design that you see here is the new standard for cul-de-sacs in
Okay.
the city of Raymore. You
We've
won't
got that
see.
we've got that in Creekmore in some places, don't we?
We have it in Stonegate in one
Okay, in
specific location,
Stonegate.
a few other small areas, but this is the new standard for cul-de-sacs for
Okay.
the city of Raymore. And the turning template for fire trucks was utilized in its design, so it does meet their requirements.
Mr. Eames?
Also, the green part of the island is part of our stormwater treatment
Right.
process for best management
Right.
practices.
Well, I like the idea. I was
Yes.
just trying to make sure that we had some assurance that would actually be, that would actually be part of the
Yes.
implementation.
Yes, it's accessible by fire trucks, snow
Okay.
plows, and large vehicles.
Okay. Thanks. Mr. Zer, what do you think? Should I be comfortable that if we agree to this, that the amenities will be there?
When you talk about the amenities, you're talking about the amenities of the play court, the playground, the pedestrian pathways, and the second yard tree, is that correct? Those are the ones that those are the ones that you're being provided with.
Yep.
As far as an actual layout of this is what it's going to look like, you are not being provided with
Right.
that this evening.
Right.
You're not being provided that the teardrops are going to be there, although it sounds to me like they've been adopted by the city as the standard procedures.
Sounds like it's a reasonable
So
assumption.
That is part of your conceptual concept there.
So the reality is that if this project goes forward as it goes to the next stage, which would be preliminary plat, and the developer invests some serious money in engineering, they may discover that the conceptual plan isn't quite feasible and may be modified some.
That could still
Yeah.
happen,
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, but the applicant has submitted a preliminary plat. It is scheduled for your
well,
next meeting.
Okay.
And it does include 86 lots in the layout
Okay.
that you see here.
I was
mean,
going to say,
slight adjustments.
I can't necessarily assume that, since that's not part of tonight's
Not part of
case,
this-
but.
You know, and that could change.
Yeah.
But what they
Yeah.
currently have filed, they have
Once
made
we
that
approve the
investment.
rezoning with the minimum standards in the R1P, basically, that's the only thing that's legally binding
Correct,
until the preliminary plat is approved.
correct.
Right.
But they at least
Okay.
have filed that application.
But it seems like the assumptions are pretty reasonable to me.
Yes.
Thank you. Other questions from the commissioners? Would anyone care to make a motion on this? And since we're a little bit small in number, I guess I should say, in order to pass on a recommendation to city council, we need a minimum of 5 commissioners and mayor voting in favor of whatever the motion might be for it to pass on as a recommendation. And we've got 7. So please don't abstain.
Mr. Chair,
Yeah,
I'll make a motion to
Commissioner
approve
Anderson.
the request to modify the development standards of the current R1P zoning classification for the property, and recommends that Planning and Zoning Commission accept the staff proposed finding the fact in Ford Case 15006 per review of the Good Ranch rezoning to the City Council with a recommendation of approval.
Second. Isn't that Commissioner Crane? Thank you. Okay, so we have a motion by Commissioner Anderson, second by Commissioner Crane to, I'm probably not going to phrase this quite right, but to accept staff proposed findings of fact and forward case 15006, Prairie View of the Good Ranch rezoning to City Council with a recommendation of approval. That sound about right? Okay. Is there any further discussion on the motion? And seeing none, all those in favor, raise a hand, please. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 in favor. None opposed, no abstentions. Thank you all very much. And my honorary commissioner. Thanks, gentlemen. All right, let's see. And Mr. Zur, I believe it's probably time for the city council report.
It has been some time since I've been able to provide this commission with a city council report. I'm happy to do so again this evening, and in fact, I would invite the mayor as well as Mr. Cadra to chime in if I get anything incorrect here. I have 3 meetings worth, although I'm only going to report from 2.
Okay.
I have an April 13th, an April 27th, and a May 11th meeting, and I'll just give you all of them at once if that's
Sure.
okay.
Sounds fine to us.
With regard to the April 13th meeting, the only thing I have to report is the Monroe Street rezoning. The Monroe Street rezoning you saw at your last meeting, which was a change to a multifamily residential in the original town overlay district. That one went to the city council with a recommendation of denial by a vote of 5 to 1 by this commission. It was denied on March 17, 2015, and I believe it was also denied by the city council, although Mr. Willard did not provide the actual number of votes for that one, so I don't have information. I just have that it had been denied. Do you recall the number of votes? Okay, fair enough. I remain accurate. I have only one other item to report on. It's with regard to the May 11th, 2015 City Council meeting. There was a dedication of right-of-way. That dedication of right-of-way was at the Remington Plaza and Orscheln Farm and Home and McDonald's. Private drive functions as a public street, providing access to several businesses and connecting the public street portion of Remington Plaza. They proposed approval of that and dedication as a right-of-way, and that was approved by a vote of 8-0. That is all I have with regard to the May 11th. The last one I've got is an April 27th, and there is nothing in there with the exception of absolutely nothing. Governing body members of the Planning and Zoning Commission. The City Council has the opportunity, and the mayor has agreed to serve and continue to serve on this council, on this commission, as a member of your commission. So that was the only thing that I can identify from the April 27th meeting that would have any impact on you. Mayor, it's welcome to have you.
Yep.
That's all I have for this council.
Thank you, Mr. Zur. Anything else to add? Okay. Mr. Carteret, if you would give us staff report and planning pipeline, please.
Thank you. Our next scheduled meeting is June 16th. We have 3 items on that agenda. As I mentioned, we do have the preliminary plat for the Prairie View of the Good Ranch subdivision. That's a public hearing for that. We have a public hearing scheduled for our annual review of the growth management plan. And we also have a annual review and report of our Unified Development Code. That does not require a public hearing. The review of the growth management plan after the public hearing, that is a item that you can take final action on, of course. If there's any amendments proposed to the GMP, you have final authority on that. The annual review of the Unified Development Code will have a couple of recommendations for you to consider. And depending upon if you provide direction to the staff, we would then do a formal text amendment. So this is, at this time, just the annual review. We also will have a meeting on July 7th for the commission. We have one case currently scheduled, the Westbrook at Creekmore, their 11th final plat will be submitted. This particular phase would be located at the corner of 163rd Street and Fox Ridge Drive. So it actually would be just to the west of the clubhouse. So when you take the roadway back to the clubhouse, there's a a small area, undeveloped land that was proposed, initially was proposed for duplexes. They modified that down to single family, and now they'll have a small subdivision, I'm thinking maybe 16 lots. That would fit into that. It'd be a Westbrook-sized, lot-sized development. Basically be a cul-de-sac coming off of 163rd Street. So that final plat would be on your July 7th agenda. And so
Can I
those are
ask
the
a
items currently
quick
being
question
considered.
about that? So, in the staff report for that case, you'll give us the current density of
Yes.
Creekmore?
I could do that, yes.
Okay.
And that's all I have for staff report at this time.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Cataract. I'll open the floor for public comment, or anyone else that wants to come to the podium, and seeing no one, guess I'll open the floor for commission member comment. Vice Chair Pfizer?
No comment.
How did I see that coming? Commissioner Anderson?
It's been a while since I've seen everyone, so it's good to be back. And I'll follow her lead and say no comment as well.
No, well, too late, you've already made a comment. Secretary Crane?
I'd like to commend Commissioner Anderson and the Raymore Peculiar School District on just the bang-up job they did at the graduation. I had two 90-year-old great-grandparents there to see their great-grandson graduate, and the facilities there, I'm used to calling it the RLDS Auditorium since I grew up in Independence, but the Community of Christ Auditorium were excellent, and want to congratulate Mike Crass for his daughter's valedictorian speech, and we really, really, really enjoyed the entire ceremony.
Thank you, kind words.
Glad to hear that. Commissioner Meiske?
I just got, just to make this formal, I'm not sure how much was discussed. Had a good time in Seattle. The planning conference that we were at, that Mr. Cataract and I went to, was very informative. I took a lot of the tours. I probably did more tours than I sat in the classroom, and, in that, but I got a lot out of the tours.
Yeah, were any of those walking, or were they mostly?
Yeah, I did.
Okay,
I
so
did one
tours.
walking, and the others were bus tours, rural communities, which actually the focus that, and usually with all conferences they have a little focus or something they're trying to drive home. That kind of focus that I got out of the conference was the planning and zoning commissions throughout the country. What you do today may not be agreed upon 10 years from now. I mean, because we have new generations coming up, and those generations look at different lifestyles and living conditions and stuff, which is something I didn't realize. I mean, we're sitting here making these, decisions and stuff, and like, we're gonna live with this for the next 50 years, and, it's just something that, opened my eyes. So it was a good trip. I think everybody ought to go.
Yeah.
So. No, it did not rain any of the time we were there.
Somebody
It was very, very nice.
Somebody
Nice
was
weather.
living right. Wow.
Yes.
Well, and I'm always glad when a commissioner can go take advantage of that, as well as the offerings from MARC and others. There are so many opportunities available. A lot of us working full-time find it difficult to take advantage of those, so appreciate your time.
And I believe the next one's in Phoenix, Arizona, and there's no rain, and
And it'll be,
and they
and
have
it'll be
great golf
cool,
courses.
and it'll be cool and comfortable.
Sure.
Yeah, sure, yeah. Okay, well, thank you, appreciate that. Let's see, Commissioner Sarsfield,
No,
no comment?
no comment.
Okay, Mayor Kirkhoff, it's all up to you.
No comment.
What?
Oh, well, I read your weekly report, so, you know, I'll get it from there. I will make one brief comment. We may be small in number, but it's good to have Mr. Eanes, Mr. Zerb, certainly good to have Mr. Cataret in the dual roles this evening of Community Development Director and Recording Secretary. And as always, appreciate the work that staff does, the staff reports, particularly the detailed chart with comparison. I don't know that we could dig that out on our own. I mean, we probably have a gut feel, but it really helps to make decisions when we have facts. And I think that makes a lot of difference. So again, I appreciate the high caliber of the research and the legwork that staff puts into these cases. Yeah. And having said that, let's see, I guess I'd entertain a motion to adjourn. Who said that? Commissioners?
Second.
Oh, was that? Oh, finally he talked.
So moved.
And so that was a motion to adjourn by Mayor Kirkhoff. Did I hear a second from Commissioner Sarsfield? All those in favor, raise the hand, please. And I think I count 8, but there's only 7 of us. We are adjourned. Huh? Oh, this new development that'll be on our, I think, July meeting is, and I forget what the name of it is, but it's
After trying
It's
to mow
west of
5
the
acres of mud today.
clubhouse on 163rd.
Those small front yards are looking
Yeah,
pretty good.
West of the creek.
You know,